Hi there. Welcome to the second episode of Complexity.fm, where Michal and I talk with people in tech about their journey, about their war stories, and about their takes on current topics. Today we are here with Bob Belderbos. Bob is very well known in the Python community for training courses. He recently also picked up Rust, which we talked about pre-recording already. And like Michal, he lives in Spain. Bob, how's it going?
Hey, good. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here. Would you like to give a short intro on yourself?
Yeah, sure. So I'm Bob Belderbos, and I have been developing software coding for 20 years. I've originally a economics background in the Netherlands. I moved to Spain pretty early on, 22 years ago. Landed in Sun Microsystems, a help desk Unix server admin type of job, and got hooked into scripting and Unix shell and programming. Made a quick detour into finance again, but ended up doing a lot of Excel VBA automation. So I really had the knack for programming. Went back to Sun, Oracle, made the support tools, a lot of scripting in Perl. Then discovered Python in 2012. Never looked back. Did a lot of coding and tooling in that. And end of 2016, I co-founded PyBites as a training company with blog courses. Over the years, 2 coding platforms and coaching. And now I kind of branched off and do the coaching under my own name. I do mainly one-to-one, but I also have cohorts for agentic AI and Rust. So the complete stack or package. Yeah.
So picked up Python in 2012 and never looked back. That's what you said, right?
Well, apart from Rust, but it's
apart from Rust. Okay,
I mean, it's not a full migration yet.
That's a different story that we can take on, like the marriage between Python and Rust. But what in your opinion, what makes Python a great language?
So in Perl and shell scripting and PHP, and also, me just starting out and not having the programmer skills of these days, this became kind of an entangled mess. And then I refactored the whole code base in Python, and I was like, wow, this is actually really easy to learn, and also how the code reads as English, and maybe because it had also more OOP than Perl, and I just could make it more maintainable from the get-go. Well, I'm not really knowing that much Python at the time, right? So it felt a really welcoming language, easy to pick up, and good decisions overall, and could write maintainable code in it. I think a lot goes back to the Zen of Python, right? Like simplicity and explicit is better than implicit, and a lot of care about beautiful code. And then of course the main feature is the community, right? Really nice people, people willing to share and help each other. That's a great quality of the whole ecosystem. And then packaging was kind of confusing for a long time, but now with UV and stuff, it's getting better because we have kind of a cargo now in Python. And then so we will get into this with Rust, but Python, of course, you can definitely foot gun yourself, right? But now with the type hints, there's a lot that got better and is actively getting better. So it's still, of course, one of my favorite languages, and it got me just a lot better maintainable code over Perl and the other scripting languages. I haven't tried Ruby though. I know DHH is raving about Ruby always, and
Ruby is an interesting language though. I like these blocks. It's in the end, good languages always have a component of Lisp to them. That's a
there
different
is one
story.
thing which I think Ruby really has advantage over Python, and that is, and I also agree with DHH, like this double under methods in Python is not, the nicest looking thing in the programming world. I can agree on that. So
he was criticizing our constructor, right? Yeah.
Like in Ruby, I don't know what you have in Ruby, but generally like underscore init underscore is not like the nicest thing to have there, I guess.
Yeah.
And it got, generally all the other double under methods.
I mean, I could live with underscore init underscore.
We are living
mean,
with it. Just
yeah, I mean, we have to live with it. But I mean, Python is like it is a well-designed language. It has its flaws, okay, admittedly. But then in this beauty of reading the code, you have something like if underscore name underscore equals quotation mark underscore main underscore quotation mark colon. That's a whole different beast.
yeah.
A lot of people get confused by that. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, I mean, Python is, I mean, we talked about that, accessible, like for newcomers. It reads very well. It has its flaws, yes, but I think this accessibility is also a point of criticism because people tend to underestimate the power of Python from time to time because it reads like pseudocode.
Mm-hmm.
Is it a real language though? What do you think? It's a toy language, or is it a real language?
Yeah, people coming from compiled languages, they always make fun of Python and they criticize it. But I do think it's a full language. I mean, it's full of features. There's a lot of design, brilliant people working on it, very powerful. Also, look at what it has done, right? It's the glue language. It's used everywhere, right? It's big in web, it's big in data science, it's big in machine learning. So yeah, I definitely consider it a language. If people say it's not a language, I'm like, what are you talking about?
Yeah,
I think it's very real. It's I would say one of the most real languages in the world, and I would add to Bob's list. It's a very popular business language, right? In the sense that
yeah,
a lot of business logic is written in Python. And it makes total sense, right? Because the business logic usually is a code where you don't give a damn about performance 99% of the time, right?
Correct.
And that's I think where Python really shines because this readability is what really pays off there. If you are like looking through some this and this and that, like calculating some, not really calculating, but just organizing some flow of information. This is where it really shines because like reading some piece of business logic in Python and reading it in Go, like that really tells you like that will really show you the difference in where Python shines.
It's expressive.
It's expressive, yeah. And you can put a lot of things in very short code, while it's still understandable because it's many times it reads like English.
Yeah. I think that's a big achievement, right? Like you can be very expressive, very short code, but then still be readable. Like list comprehensions, for example, it's beautiful and very concise. It might not be always performant, but that was also not the goal of the language, right? The goal of the language was to make it the perfect glue language, and it succeeded at that, right?
Yeah, and as I said, like for business logic, usually you don't need performant, right? Obviously, if you are doing system programming or anything, you should not use Python. You should use something else. But yeah. I also come from compiled languages. I spent years and years doing C#, .NET world, then Objective-C, Swift. But Python has definitely its place.
Yeah. I was curious how it is for people with a compiled background coming to Python, because I didn't know better, right? I came from scripting to scripting. But if you're coming from a more strict language, would you then cringe when you see Python? Like, do you see the flaws more? Are they more in your face, or how is that?
For me, it was quite, how to put it, it was easy. So I didn't really cringe. Coming from C# back then, I think it was also 2012 or something. I was actually I switched from .NET to working on iOS apps. And as always, we needed some backend for the iPhone app I was working on. And I was like, shall I do .NET C# stuff? And I was like, no, I don't want to do that, because at the time there was no like this cool framework. What was cool at the time was Rails.
Yeah,
But then I was like looking into, Ruby, and I didn't really like it because it seems to be, I don't know, I didn't like it. So like, okay, what is alternative? And there was Django, obviously. I was like, okay, that sounds good. And I started doing this simple little API using Django and Python, and it was great. I felt like I got like superpower, because there were a lot of things you would have to do and set up in the .NET world at the time in 2012 or something like that, or 11. You just didn't have to do in Python, right? So for me, it was very, I felt very productive. So I didn't, I didn't miss any types or like compile or anything.
Right.
I think there are also like waves in trends in the industry. I mean, like around 2010, there was a revival of the software architecture patterns, solid and design patterns and stuff like that. Java at that time was very, very popular. I mean, Java was actually the opposite of being expressive. You had like public public getters and setters all over the place, and people started realizing, well, this is too much overhead. Let's go back to non-typed or dynamically typed systems like in Python. And now it's also like swinging back a little. And yes, Django, for me personally, I used Django since 0. whatever. That was a game changer in web development. And unlike Rails at that time, it didn't impose like another way of thinking about programming languages other than the imperative ones that we already knew at that time, that were taught in universities, that were all over the place. But now we are kind of getting back to, well, maybe typing is not that bad of a thing. We have type hints in Python. We have TypeScript apparently, and I think with bringing more apps to the web, that created like a demand for client-side JavaScript apparently. And then people started asking the questions like, why do I need a different language, front end and back end? And like Rails solved it in a way back in the day, they invented, what was it, like CoffeeScript or something that compiled Ruby-like syntax back to JavaScript.
But that was unrelated to Rails. I think it was unrelated to Rails. It was done by other guy, but I think the AJ and Rails community picked it up as a default for the Rails pipeline.
Exactly. So exactly, that's what I was going to. They put it in the pipeline, and it was a pretty simple pipeline back then, because that was a time when we had the style CSS, script.js, and index HTML, right? That was about it. I mean, now pipelines are more complex with all the npm jungle and stuff, and then you are actually tied to TypeScript. So we are seeing two major trends, I guess. One is in the Python community especially. One is, okay, people start building most apps completely in TypeScript, full stack. And the other trend is like internal tooling, especially in the Python community, goes back to compiled languages such as Rust. So what happens to Python then? Is that something that, or can Python survive the overtake of Rust or of TypeScript? And how does Rust get into play with that? So like not from a language perspective, but from an adoption perspective. What do you think?
But for the web backends and data science and machine learning, Python is still massive, right? And TypeScript, would you build? Because I haven't used TypeScript, definitely on my list. Just a stricter JavaScript. I'm definitely interested in that. But would you build your whole app in TypeScript? Because I haven't done that yet.
Well, I don't know. People apparently do. I probably would not, because my heart is or Python has also a special place in my heart as well. But I mean, if you look at, for example, Cloudflare and their new initiative with coming from a CDN to a cloud compute platform, there you actually don't have another choice other than building with TypeScript. I mean, theoretically, you can do with Python, but only up to a certain number or version. But yeah, I mean, they build an entire business around TypeScript only. And I think it's gaining a lot of popularity. I mean, there are technical reasons for that. Like it can be very well isolated. But I don't know. I probably wouldn't do it, but I see people doing this more and more.
Yeah. Personally, I'm still building my backends in Python, Django, and one, of course, try Rust for that as well. And then I've been using HTMX or Datastar, for more JavaScripty things without then having to write the JavaScript, which mostly works. Sometimes you have to put a bit of JavaScript in there, but those are nifty libraries as well, right? So I'm definitely sometimes going the other way, like where can I roll out JavaScript? No, I mean I like JavaScript, right? I mean there's some bad things, but it's if you're working on the web, you need to know JavaScript, right? But yeah, that's my experience. I'm definitely very strong in Django, and then doing something different for the front end. Yeah. Sorry, but I didn't answer that question, maybe.
The second part of the question was actually like, where does Rust come into play?
Oh,
and why is Rust so popular in the Python community right now?
So that's really the trend, right? Of all these libraries now rewriting their core or total library migrations, right? So I think it started with Pythonistas v2, rewriting the core 17 times faster, and then Ruff, all of a sudden, Michael Kennedy on top of Python said like, oh, I linted my whole code base, like 50,000 files. I couldn't, with a blink of my eye, right, it came back, and like, what's happening, right? So I think that's fascination of new tools coming out in Rust and seeing that amazing performance we're not used to as Pythonistas. So Ruff, UV, and now their type checker. And Polar is the core in Rust, and then the Pyo3 library for the bindings. So I think it's really that trend of more things being either the core rewritten in Rust and exposed to Python with Pyo3, or just complete binaries. And yeah, it's the trend. But then also, we're probably going to talk a bit more about this, is the quality of the language, right? The strictness and the design that's gives you better guardrails, right? So I think that intrigues Pythonistas, where we have these problems with nonce, unhandled nonce, non.attribute, and mutability, the default mutable argument type of bugs, and then seeing that that's all safe in Rust. I think that intrigues people.
When did you first look into Rust?
Yeah, it was 2 years ago. So I was at PyCon US, and I saw this talk by Charlie Marsh, creator of Ruff, UV, and he went a bit more into detail about the heap and the stack, and how he made some optimizations in Ruff. And yeah, it's just this random event. You didn't go to PyCon to get intrigued by some sort of performant language, and then it just happened by some random talk, right? And I think also like, I want to have this challenge. I do like a month of something, learning a new thing, right? So I did a month of Rust, and I was like a new blog, daily article, kind of burned out by that. But I got a good, the basics at least down, and then it lay there dormant for a while, and now I'm getting back into it since, I don't know, a year or so. Yeah, I really like the design, the strictness, and I'm just noticing how it made me a better Pythonista, because I'm now more wary of where Python you might foot gun yourself, right? So I think it's a win-win because I'm not a compiled language person, so this is my first of. I think it's good for every scripter to have a compiled language, right, for overall knowledge. And I'm writing programs in it, and I'm co-running a cohort now, so I'm training Pythonistas with the help of Jim Hodep, who knows a lot about Rust. And it's just a great thing to learn as a programmer. But I think you can say that about other languages as well. I think, Michal, you mentioned Haskell. That's also on my list, right? I think learning that, you would get some very interesting paradigms in your toolkit. But I think that double win of learning a stricter language and then coming back to the scripting, seeing it with different eyes as well.
Got it. So speaking of Rust, I mean, this was created by Mozilla back in the day, right?
I think so, yeah.
They wanted to create a language to make their renderer, their web renderer, more performant and less error prone. In my experience, it didn't have that much of like corporate adoption, let's put it that way. And I think the Python community was a major driver of Rust's popularity, at least from what I see. I'm not that deep into the Rust community though, but that's what my impression was. Would you say that's about right?
Yeah, I don't have the full overview of Rust popularity, but I can definitely say that now, thanks to the Python ecosystem, it's getting a boost, right? I'm not sure if it's also getting a boost in other scripting communities. It seems mainly in the Python one, right?
For some reason it does. There's a second boost though, driven by AI, because now everyone is rewriting any tool in Rust. Most notably this bun SH thing. ON. Okay, what's going on
bun
there?
was from Zig to Rust, right?
From Zig to Rust. And I think there was also one other larger tool that was ported somehow. What's going on there? Why are especially Python people and AI people picking Rust as their target?
Yeah, so I think it comes back to the strictness, right, and the guardrails. So if you work with AIs, I mean, these systems inherently being undeterministic, the stricter and better contracts you can give it, the better it's going to work and iterate, right? Because with Python, you can have your type hints, but there's, and of course you have your checker in the loop and all that, but still, it's not as strict. And you have in Python everything is open, and in Rust everything is closed, and you have to be explicit when you make something mutable. You have the whole ownership model of you can have everything has one owner, and if you borrow it in a mutable way, you cannot borrow it again. Those guarantees you don't have in Python, right? So if your AI has to pass those compiler checks, it's going. And I kind of try to make more like a case study of that, where I can actually demonstrate that. But just from how the languages work and the strictness, that's a very good thing for a thing that otherwise is spitting out different results if you try the same query, right? Yeah.
So it's basically, you're saying it's basically a language that forces you to put most of the things that can be checked at compile time to be actually checked at compile time.
Yes.
So you have less runtime errors because the language forces you to program it in a way like that.
Yes. Yeah.
And on top of that, it's compiled and it has also some performance benefits.
Yes.
It has a steep learning curve though.
Yes.
And I was wondering, like, when I listened to your journey, you were like, yeah, well, I picked up Python and it was so easy, so accessible.
Yeah.
And like, I was wondering why the Python community chooses Rust. Okay, there's this strictness, I get that. But from a language perspective, a simpler one like Zig or Go would have been a better fit for someone accustomed to how Python code looks. And that was, I was just wondering why they still chose Rust for the most part.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense, right? It's for people who like to suffer at first, right? Because it's not easy.
You mean they had a great life because of Python, and then they just wanted to feel the pain again?
I mean, I think inherent to engineers, we want to also do difficult things. So I can definitely see that, right? But yeah, at the start it's not fun because it's very confusing, all these symbols and fighting the borrow checker, as they say, right? But then once it clicks, it makes a lot of sense. But yeah, that's a good point. I mean, I definitely know a lot of Pythonistas that are also passionate about Go, and why not go with that, right? So I don't have a good answer other than that couple of brilliant engineers took their foray into it and started to promote it. But I think the strictness ultimately, right, when you're making these libraries and more complex systems, having those guarantees and that strictness is something that we then all become to love. But again, I don't know Go, so I'm not sure how the guarantees are there. I did read an article today, well, partially it was very long, the Go migration guide from Go to Rust. And again, I don't know Go, but I did see like you have to explicitly check your nils. And that's of course tricky then, right? Because then we're back in Python land where we don't have the guarantee, and it's on the developer and at runtime, right? So yeah, that's what I think people are just very happy with, and the compiler also is amazing. Like we're getting better error messaging in Python. It's a lot better now. But then you see the compiler, and I'm not sure how long these messages have been around, but they're excellent. You can literally have the compiler being your pair programmer. I mean, I use LLMs to help me, but now the compiler itself is actually giving me all the hints, and it's amazing, right? So it's a piece of amazing software, right?
Maybe we could bring into this discussion the Python type annotations and MyPy and TY, because I come from the compiled languages background originally in the .NET world, and what we discussed regarding the type safety and all the other checks you get from compiler, like that's the whole point of compiler, right? And some languages can take it very I would say deep, or quite further. Rust is one of the examples, but there is also Haskell, which also, like, if it kind of compiles, it usually works. But there's been development, I think, also in the Ruby world, but especially in Python, type annotations is something which is not new. I think it's close to 10 years at this point, or 8 years.
Yeah, right.
We have MyPy, we have now TUI, and I think you can get a lot of benefit also from type annotations. I'm not saying it, does the same thing as a compiler or in case of Rust, but I think you can get quite far with just type annotation if you run MyPy or Chai on top of it. And so the simple thing around none values, simple checks, definitely you can just keep Python and go with that. Obviously, if you don't care about performance, that's another issue.
Yeah, no, that's a great point, and I would like to kind of calculate an estimated percentage how far it can get you, because a lot of stuff it will catch, right? Like the infamous none thing. If TY sees that you have a possibility of an option and you do an dot attribute, then it's going to complain, right? And so these main issues it's going to catch. But then there's also stuff that's just inherent to the language, like exhaustive checking with enums in Rust, for example. And there's the type checker. I don't think it enforces. Yeah, there's a trick. I cannot remember it now. You can do something in the catch-all thing that the type checker will shout at you, but that's then still an extra line of code. So the exhaustiveness of pattern matching on enums is just in the language in Rust, and that's you could skip a case in Python. But other than that, I mean, the most common, maybe 70-80%, the type checker, and they're getting better as well, right? Like more type ins. It's a very active field of development. And then there are 3 type checkers or more. Like you have MyPy and TY, and then I'm not sure how you pronounce it. Pyrefly.
Pyrefly, Pyrefly.
Yeah, so that's the 1.0 came out, and because MyPy can be slow, TY is fast, but then it's not fully complete yet. So I'm actually going to try a Pyrefly now, because maybe I find the middle, right, of performance and maybe more exhaustive checking.
There's also Pyrite, right?
Oh, right, yeah.
Oh, yeah,
which
right.
is based for the PyLens, which is the IDE. Then, by the way,
Yeah.
if you used, for example, if you used PyCharm, it's not technically the type checker, but like the PyCharm IDE would tell you that, you know,
Right.
even 10 years ago, it would tell you like, you know, you are returning none, but, you know, you are not supposed to. It kind of understands your Python code. But I would argue maybe if you are writing business logic and performance is not your problem, you are still good with Python and type annotations, like 90% of the time for sure.
Yeah, sometimes I wonder, like, okay, I'm making this command line app in Rust. Why should I, right? Why not just do it in Python? It's fast enough, right? And then maybe it's more like a learning exercise. So yeah, often if you don't need the performance, maybe not switch yet. Yeah. But on the other hand, with the AI argument, makes it more appealing to use it more. But yeah, then on the other hand, if you have deep experience with Python, you probably can tell pretty quickly when the AI is spitting out Python code that has loopholes, right? So it kind of depends on the experience as well.
I don't know if you want to spin to AI topic again so soon, but the fact that, you know, I get the argument that you know, Rust is for AI might work better because like compiler will tell AI, you know, this is wrong and so on. On the other hand, it's still, you need to still produce a lot of code, and in Rust it's more code than in Python. And then the question for me is, obviously, if you are not reading AI generated code, well, good for you, whatever your workflow is. But if you are reading it, there is just less code with Python, right, to read than with Rust. And also, I would say it's easier to understand the Python code than the Rust code. As we discussed before, it's more.
That also brings the
succinct.
question of token efficiency, right? So if it's less to read, it's also less to write. So it's probably even cheaper to build Python
Less
code
to
than
think
Rust
about.
code. And I think that there was a comparison, and I guess C++ and C were like the worst performers in that regard, apparently. And then TypeScript was not so good. Go was not good, but Python was pretty good at that.
It comes down to the fact that it's very close to English, as Bob said before, right?
Yeah, correct. But like before we go very deep into the AI thing, we were just like quite deep into the intricacies of typing systems. And I'm wondering, you are doing coaching and courses, Bob, for a long time now. So what are you discussing with your students or mentees, or how do you call them, or clients?
Yeah, clients, students. Yeah, I kind of like both. Yeah, students.
So what are you discussing with them? What are they learning from you, and how did that change over the last years? I mean, not counting AI into it right now, but like I can imagine even before AI, it changed a lot because of the availability of different learning methods and media and stuff like that.
Yeah. I do all project-based. I think it's the best way to learn, right? When I didn't know anything, I just started building projects. And of course, you always have to study the books and you know, certain syntax to know what you're talking about. But 90% of the learning comes through building, right? Because it's where you have to write the business logic, reason about software. So that's what I emulated in coaching, started in PyBites, and I do always projects and the better, always something related to what people are passionate about. I mean, it could be a work project, but if it's for themselves, something they would feel really proud about, like some open source project, have one guy in the Bahamas. He literally built his payroll SaaS business out of coaching, working with me, which he's now sustaining, which is amazing. And it was his first Django app, and he just knew Python, and he's a Django ninja now, right? By building that, because there was so much complexity with a typical payroll calculation type app. So it's always project based, and yeah, it's definitely seeing a shift as well with AI, right? Where maybe in 2020 it was more like greenfield projects, and that was fine, but now people usually come with the next level, right? Like with something they've already built and they don't understand, or it's something beyond just AI, right? Because it's easier to get the scaffold done with AI. So I definitely see that trend of more complex stuff, and maybe even moving a bit into more like consultancy stuff where you just advise rather on existing. So that's a transformation I'm going through myself. And then, of course, the specialization where Pythonistas are already very advanced, and then they want to learn something new. So either they go into agentic AI or Rust, right?
So, so how does it work? Like in general, you do one-on-ones mostly?
Yes, it's one-on-one or cohort. So one-on-one people come to me with what they want to learn, custom project, to make a proposal, and then we get to work. Before in PyBites, it was more like standard. You come in with 2 projects, but again, it's now more custom because of how the industry is changing. And the cohorts are 6 weeks in a small group setting, which I co-run with expert coaches. So Juanjo for AI and Jim Hodep for Rust. Because there I need their expertise, because I'm not an AI nor Rust expert. I love these things, but I leverage their knowledge.
Yeah. How would you describe your role? Are you like a teacher, a peer programmer, a mentor? What is it?
I just call it coach. Like maybe it's. I do think as a coach you have like multiple hats, because you're deep into the code. You're a programmer. You're a content creator by also sharing your knowledge. You even have to do a bit of managing, right? Like you're kind of a project manager, but keeping people busy and prioritizing with issues. Again, you're deep in the code. You're reviewing, so you're peer programmer. So it's that makes it also fun and interesting. That's and then a business owner, you have the marketing and sales as well, right? You do everything. But as a technical person, a coach, it's kind of nice that you have both the technical side and also the soft skills side, and the mindset and having to motivate people, because it's tough, right? They get stuck, and then you have to get them out of these blockers.
Yeah. Got it. I like this payroll story. Like how, there was a guy like I want to learn Python and I have an idea, and can you help me? Was it like that?
Yeah, exactly. That was a while ago. That was in 2021 or 2022, and he came with that idea. I want to build my own business, and he had the idea. He validated that was something the Bahamas needed. There was a niche for it, and we went to work. So this was really exciting. And so these kind of projects I like the most, when there's really high stakes, and it's something that will not only give them the coding skill or programming skills, but also it will impact our lives, right?
Got it. How long did it take from
that was 12
initial
weeks.
consult? Sorry?
12 weeks, 3 months more or less.
3 months?
Yeah. We're MVP, right? Like, and then he kept. That's the other thing with coaching, right? You, it's like that phrasing of you can give somebody the fish or you can teach them how to fish. So ideally, you teach them how to fish, and then they take it to the next level. Like now, that thing is in production for 5-6 years, and actually, I had a blog post case study recently, and he came back to me with how he now uses AI, and how that's still the root of that was still in the coaching. I mean, the tools are new, but his mindset of doing more like TDD and guardrails, that still stemmed from the coaching. But yeah, he's now that app is now 10-20x, right? Like, but it was the MVP that get the ball rolling, right?
Got it. That's an interesting story. And how is it like these days? People come with ready-made AI slop and say, okay, help me clean that up, or
it's not a there's definitely some slop, and that's where I'm kind of expanding the offering of not doing only new projects, but also trying to do the deslopification. But yeah, that needs to be a well-scoped project, right? Like if somebody comes with a history of many years, it's too big, right? So I might have to I'm finding that balance there, but I can there's my dearest junior to senior, 5 coders to engineering, or plain build a SaaS kind of. Those are the 3 verticals I have kind of in mind. Yeah.
As someone who watches people closely while they are learning, how do you think AI impacts that? Like for me, it's like I can easily dig into new topics that are new to me. I can learn something with the help of AI because it's more or less project-based, because I get something running rather than just reading a book or watching a video, right? But do you think that something changed how people learn, like attention span or something like that?
Yeah, it's the good, the bad, and the ugly, I think, right? Like it's a game changer, because now you have context, right? So it can help you with your project. So if you ask the right questions, you can, like, where maybe before, that's why I think courses have it tough now, because people, but that's then also the risk. Like people don't take 6 hours anymore to watch a full video course, which I don't think is good, right? Because I think I still read books, try to read books end to end. For example, the Rust programming book, going through that again, just taking it in slowly, the whole thing. But I see that the bad side is that people are losing attention spans, because the AI is such a dopamine thing, and you have 15 terminal windows open with 15 agents, so you're constantly context switching, and that's actually not that great. I don't think that's really good for our attention span and concentration. But anyway, so now you can just ask a very pointed question, and you'll get answers in the context of your code base, which is awesome, right? So I think that resolves a lot of like first barrier or first level questions and guidance. Where I see people still struggle is to put it all together, right? When a project is complex, and they might do agent sessions or chat sessions, but then, can I really understand this code? Is this really the best way to do it? Am I applying the right architecture, the right design patterns, or just plain getting stuck in spite of agents helping, just because the complexity? I think it's when complexity comes in, it gets tricky. And then advanced engineers can usually figure it out, but if it's engineers with only a few years of experience, then they still find that hard, right? But yeah, it's a major step up, the AI. But it's also dangerous, because we can take the path of least resistance and start rubber stamping PRs and stuff, and I don't think that's good. Because again, it's an indeterministic system, right? So we have to still review every line, I think.
Yeah, and I think the dopamine effect is so large, because this thing speaks our languages. So it feels like we are interacting with something,
it's
even
pleasing.
if it's pleasing, it's conforming in a way. And in the end, it's well, you could put it that way, but it's also like, I read a tweet the other day, like enumerating different approaches and then picking one is actually not the way, or is actually a good way to do coding, but it's less creative than actual creative work. So that's a good way of putting it, because like this enumerating of different solutions is something AI is very good at. I don't, in some instances, especially when I'm learning something new, the hard step is getting the first thing to run, and AI is very good at helping me with that.
Yeah.
Okay, another thing is larger
Are
context.
are those good solutions or good options? That's the thing, right? And also, if you don't know, how do you know which one is best, or like, you know, how do you know anything? So the problem I have with all of, I mean, I use it also for this, right? Like, you know, give me 5 different ways of doing something, but really the problem is that it's addictive as a slot machine, in the sense that like, and now like do it now, it doesn't work, like, you know, move the button there, and then like
one more.
and,
Try harder.
you know, one more until I get it right, and like after 3 hours, you know, stupid example, like button is on the top right with the right color and whatever, like maybe you could just do it yourself in 30 minutes, but that wouldn't give you that much dopamine, right? So and there's a lot of people. And it's not people's fault, right? Because this is designed like this way. Like you're like, you know, you get this hit every time. Like I just write a sentence and then stuff happens, right?
Yeah.
And it is true, but like maybe you turn on your brain and you do it in 30 minutes, and you just don't, you know, do 50 rounds or 20 rounds in 3 hours. And it has this effect on your brain where you just stop thinking. Because, and again, I'm not blaming people or anyone, because it's the nature of the brain is to save energy. That's why we have, there is also this book, the Power of Habit or something, where basically they explained like, once you learn something and you do it repeatedly, the brain kind of moves it into, you know, this part of the cognitive part of the brain somewhere back into amygdala. So it's automated. You don't think about it. And I think this effect kind of comes here, where like, you know, it's trying to save energy. So like, you know, just say it and, you know, don't think. And it's addictive in the sense, because like you are kind of saving energy, or the brain is trying to save energy. And it has this effect over time that people just offload all the decisions to AI.
Yeah, totally agree. And I mean, it's so addictive that, I mean, we came a long way, like from prompt engineers to context engineers. Then there were harness engineers. The other day I read about loop engineers.
Yeah, there's loop engineers now as well.
I'm waiting for the recursion engineer in a way. I don't know. I mean, people are
That's just the loop with the tail optimization, no?
Kind of.
Burn and crash engineers, maybe.
I mean, it reminds me of in a way, we are old enough to remember when everyone was a Scrum Master. Now everyone is an AI engineer of some sort. And I'm actually wondering what these people are building. They are automating some stuff, but what are they actually automating?
Yeah.
And you teach courses on AI. What is it that people learn? I can only speak for myself, but I have never 700 agent sessions running, because I just didn't get that to produce any significant useful results.
Yeah, the more terminals you start agents in, the least you get done, because you might just work on a lot of things that don't make the cut, right? So going back to Gary Keller's The One Thing, it's just better to focus on one thing, and really first ask the question: is this the thing that I need to be building or doing, right? It's impossible that 15 things you're building in tandem would be 15 important things. It's just not. So you're just probably wasting a lot of, it feels productive because of the dopamine and stuff, but it's probably not. 12 out of
Should you even be doing
things.
that? That's the question.
Yeah.
Because if you know, like there is this thing which would be nice to do, but I had to do it manually, right? So I was like, okay, maybe that will take me 5 days. So I decided not to do it, because it's just not worth the time. And now I'm like, there is this thing which I would like to do, but okay, maybe with AI I can do it in 3 hours. So I start doing it. Obviously it will take 3 days, which is better than 5 days, but maybe at 3 days I should actually not be doing it, and I would spend my time better 3 days doing something else. So there is definitely this
No, I think
This,
people also underestimate the real cost, right? I should say 3 hours, it turns into 3 days, because the first prototype, yeah, you probably get that in 20 minutes, right? Or an hour. But then to really have it hit the real world and be, maintainable, something decent, no, it actually 2/3 of the time then comes back to iteration and your knowledge, right? So this whole vibe coding thing, I think, is a myth. And then there's the interruption cost. If you're constantly multitasking because of that end thing you put on top of it, and that has also, you just end up with days that you did actually complete. Like, what of the main, most highest priority task actually got done, right? Well, doing too much cloud on other stuff. But anyway, yeah, what was the other thing? I forgot. But yeah, it's tricky, and it's. I definitely think we need to also keep the friction of deliberate practice. I'm not hand coding that much, but I definitely still have like one or more sessions a week where I just want to hand code stuff, just to have that intuition and play with the code and be close to the
muscle memory.
Yeah. I'm not sure the correlation, because if you have experience, I think you can actually look at code pretty quickly and gauge if it's doing the right thing. But I cannot back that up with a study or anything, right? So, giving the muscle atrophy and gym analogy, I rather treat it like muscles, and I probably better to keep them training with some resistance training,
Yeah. We discussed this internally in. Yeah, sorry.
No, go ahead.
There is some delay. We discussed this internally with Buzz. We are working on the Stelvio project, and I found that it doesn't really work for me, because if you look at the code which AI generates, it looks good. Like, it looks good. Stuff is working. But even if you try to carefully read the code, and then even if you try to carefully read the PR, you still miss a lot of things. Because you didn't experience the pain of writing that code.
Yeah.
So, for example, many times AI very happily just copy-pastes, well, not copy-paste, but generates basically exactly the same code as you already have in the code base, but it doesn't reuse it. It just writes the code again. And you miss that, because if you look at the PR or the code generated, you look at it like, okay, it looks good. Yeah, good function. Yeah, looks good. You go,
thumbs up,
approve. Yeah, oh, good. And then, yeah. And then, and this is from the real, Stelvio code base. And then suddenly, when you actually look, because you do something manually, and you're like, we have this 3 times. This 50 lines of code is there 3 times, right? But you didn't notice.
Yeah.
So this is something where, like you said, resistance training, the trick with the resistance training is generally like, you go through the pain so the muscle develops, right?
Yeah.
And it's same, like, because basically the pain is useful. It's kind of a feedback mechanism, right? And you lose this feedback mechanism because you don't feel the pain. Like, you don't need to write it. AI does it. AI doesn't care. It also doesn't feel the pain, so it happily writes a lot of code. We are all happy up until some point where we realize there is, a lot of code which maybe should not even exist.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great reminder. And also, yeah, maybe it writes way too much code, can be much shorter. So it just takes, you need to slow down, right? It takes time. You need to sit with the code. You need to refactor it. Again, at a craftsmanship mentality, right? And but also to be in the code, debugging it, and you're right. You cannot just only look at it. I mean, you get a 70%, but that 30%, that's where the nuance is, and that's probably when you're touching it.
Yeah. And the question is, do you ever get that? Do you ever get to it? And then if you get to it and you actually do it, are you actually faster in the end? Because you were playing with the slot machine for 3 weeks, right? You generated a lot of code, and then, it works, but at some point you want to make it right. And then if you go into code base, there is lots to do.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
more
I
slow,
don't know.
more clean up.
Yeah.
I mean, the marketing is like, yeah, you're 10x faster developer, but I think like the reality is like, I mean, I think we're slightly faster with this, but it's more like 1.5, right? Not
Anytime
10x.
I hear any X and whatever number is in front of it, unless it's a decimal number starting with 1, I don't believe it.
Well, or maybe if it's a simple credit, right? But the majority of software is way beyond that, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, again, like the speed up is something between 0.5x and 10x. I would argue. So it's not significantly different from 0.
Yeah, it
or
wouldn't
from
go
1 in
beyond
that case.
2x, I think.
Yeah, probably. One thing that that I remember from what you were saying, Michal, was like, should we be even doing that? Should we like invest our time in building stuff that we would not have built if it wasn't for AI? I wouldn't see it that pessimistic, because it's always good if people experiment with stuff, and sometimes you don't know if this is just a stupid idea or if it has potential once it's unfolded. What is a critical thing though is, and we see that probably being one of the reasons why GitHub is down all the time, people start publishing those bad ideas. And so there has to be some kind of mechanism. Okay, I built this and it turned out to be bad, so I just kill it now. This won't happen, because it would contradict the entire dopamine flash that you got while building it, and now you're proud of it. Kind of. Yeah. So again, the question about like with all these AI topics, what is it exactly what you are teaching in these AI coachings?
Oh yeah, that was the pending question. Yeah, so yeah, definitely not the hype stuff. we developed well, Juanjo, my fellow coach. He made this really cool curriculum of building an expense agent, which is not rocket science. It's very easy to send a prompt to an LLM and ask it to categorize your expense, right? That's the easy part. But we really want to teach how to put that in a system, right? How to make that predictable and how to have a human in the loop, right? So we teach the validation part and Pydantic and do a Telegram bot interface. So first write the core business logic and put different interfaces around it. One being a Telegram bot where the user submits a fuzzy string with one or more expenses, and then you get a list of categories. And the AI thinks it's that category, but you still have to prove it, which doesn't sound very efficient, right? Because you still have to tap the expense, but it makes a point. It makes a point of like, hey, AI suggests this, but we have in this interface, we have a human in the loop that has to prove it. So yeah, it's I would say 80% Python design patterns, repository patterns, protocols, service layer, that kind of stuff. So kind of doing all we can to make that indeterministic AI more deterministic. So kind of more teaching like the system around it, because I think that's where it's very easy to use AI or LMs and stuff, either through chat or your subscription or the API, but to build a system around it, that's what people still find difficult, or that's not well taught in those typical AI courses. So we build more like a system design course around it. Yeah.
So basically, where AI is, or the LLM is kind of one component that you can talk to, like any other API would be. So basically, what you're describing is a harness. Is it like that?
Yeah.
Okay. What is a good starting point to get started with those harness building stuff in Python?
Well, there's many patterns, but I think the I have a couple of more concise write-ups on my blog as well. We can link, but yeah, it's of course the validation part. Again, going back to the strictness, right, of types, that already helps a lot. And Pydantic is of course a great library for that. But yeah, we also teach kind of the repository pattern now with the persistence of different backends and the protocols. Nice typing feature of how you can swap out different LLM vendors to not be stuck to one. But yeah, harness wise, the human in the loop. Yeah, so there are different elements, but a lot of this is just classic design patterns and architecture in a sense, wrapped around how you handle the responses. Yeah.
Very cool. Yeah, we link those articles in the show notes so people can follow up.
Cool.
And I think we have a lot of predictions already, like Python will stay despite the pressure from TypeScript. Rust will continue the marriage
Flourish.
with Python,
Yeah.
kind of. There's one prediction left, obviously. So will we all lose our jobs because of the slot machine?
I mean, if you're just writing CRUD apps, then I don't think you have a job. Like, I think the future of engineering is work in tandem with these tools and have firm architectural skills. Because yeah, the tools, I don't think, well, you have the token price, right? It might become more like something for a higher tier. I don't know, right? But from the adoption in companies, it seems it's not going to go away, right? So we have to learn to embrace those tools. And I think 99 out of 100 engineers, I'm not sure a number, but I think everybody uses the tools to some extent, right? So I think a lot of this becomes finding that balance of having it helping with your code, but as Michal said as well, it's still going to take a lot of judgment, experience, refactoring, and craftsmanship for you to be happy with certain code, right? So I hope that's going to be the trend. When I then see like token maxing, I'm worried because if that's going to be the metric, then I'm not sure what our job will mean. So I don't think we're not out of. There will be just a shift in jobs, right? But I think there's enough software to be written. It will be different how it's written, but we still need engineers, right?
So you are doubling down on deep technical expertise, and then we're good to go?
For now, I am. Yeah, maybe also because I like it and I don't know what else to do. And I just like building stuff and helping people do that. And I still see a place. And that's, I think coaching is timeless, right? Because it's not the coaching I was doing 6 years ago, but it's still project based. But it's I now have to move up a layer in a sense.
So is that coaching always based for a project that people pursue, or do you have some people that say, okay, I want to have like a regular career as an employee, and can you help me with that? Is that also part of your
What's the regular
coaching?
career part? As an engineer?
As an employee, as a software engineer, without a own project. I just want to be
but the project is not necessarily a product. It can be anything, right? And in practice, many of the engineers I've helped, they have been in jobs and want to be in jobs, and they want to make promotions internally or seeking new jobs. Now the job market is also tough, right? So that's another factor, right? Like it's not as 5-6 years ago, right? So
not at
people
all.
are saying like maybe I should go more on my own and set up my own shop or build a product. But then I think SaaS is also kind of saturated. Although if you have a great idea and you have a bit of marketing chops to find a following, I think there's always potential, right?
Sure.
I mean, I built 2 platforms, and there were many coding platforms out there, but they were different, right? And it took a lot of work, but they were different. So, but the coding platform space was definitely saturated. So it's
you can
weird
always
times,
find a niche, right?
Yeah.
Interesting times. Yeah. There are so many effects that just overlay each other.
And I think it's going so fast, and we're still like absorbing it. And I think we have to have these kind of discussions, because if we don't think, well, on one hand, we are in the hands of these powerful corporates, and it's just what it is, right? But I think for our own careers, we need to think about this stuff. This is. I have not seen such a fast-paced trends and changes. Like that was not the case from 2016 till GPT, right? Wasn't that
No,
slower?
that was a quite boring time. The iPhone already
War and
happened.
Peace, right? It was in the peacetime.
Yeah,
you had 20 new JavaScript frameworks every week, so that was not.
Yeah, as I said, that was a boring time.
I think the world, our world, is actually starting to healing. I think there will be a lot of adjustment with all this AI hype. One is, for example, AWS today they posted a tweet that maybe generating the code is actually not speeding you up. That was very, very interesting one, and one of the first, or maybe the first big company which actually said that out loud. So that for me is a big sign. Coding is not solved, which was, I think, another tweet from this Boris Cherny guy, which Prime reacted like, what do you think? It's solved. Like, it's not solved. We still need to do, debugging and all that stuff. I'm like, well, that's different. Like, that's not different. Like, if you need to debug, then coding is obviously not solved, because if it was solved, it would just work. You would not have to debug, right? So that's not a separate skill. So like telling you, like, saying coding is solved, while you need architects, you need to debug, you need to look at the logs, you need to testing, you need to do all of that. That means it's not solved, because if it's solved, it would just work, right?
Yeah.
And then there is this whole thing with the pricing. Like, I haven't really tried this new Fable, not sure how it's pronounced.
Fable,
5. But one thing is for sure, it's double the price. So how you do token maxing now with the double of price, right? For now, I don't think it's gonna get cheaper, because another thing they said, like, we will commoditize LLMs and it will go to eventually close to zero. I don't think it's happening with these proprietary models. Might happen with the Chinese models. If Chinese government subsidize the development, but eventually you still need to run it somewhere as an inference, which is cheaper. But again, like, I think a lot of things is happening right now. A lot of people and companies are realizing that it is not the magic bullet. And we also are getting, at the same time, we are getting more realistic prices. So I don't think we, as developers, are losing a job anytime soon.
Yeah, there was definitely a hype, and then especially the last couple of weeks or months, we hear people coming back from it, and that makes me happy, because it's so inflated,
I get that this has a larger impact than the introduction of compilers and the introduction of code completion in our IDEs. Yes, I get that, but in the end, it's a hype cycle like everyone else, and it's not going anywhere. But it's not that we are all running 7 million agents at a time.
Yeah.
You remember, like, the Bitcoin and the blockchain were going to solve a lot of problems for us 5 years ago, and I don't really see it solved anything, and it's kind of going.
Well, it solved a lot of problems that never existed before.
Well, yeah, but that's the thing, and not sure who it was, but someone was saying that all these, like, OpenAI, Anthropic, all these companies might end up in the same way as a Coinbase. Right, they are big and fantastic right now. They want to do IPO, and I think that one of the reasons why they rush into IPO is because if they don't do it now, they might not be able to do it 2 years later.
Yeah, and this is what
hype
I meant.
is hype, but the reality is reality.
Yeah, this is what I meant. It's not necessary that these LLMs are just commoditized down to zero, but we actually don't know how large these models are, how much this inference actually really costs, how the margins are, and we will never know before the IPO. So after the IPO, there will be at least some baseline of, okay, this is where that's going. But this, from today's perspective, that can go either direction.
Yep.
Okay, the world is healing. That was good.
I think so.
I hope so. Just
I think so.
Stay positive. Yeah.
Just one last question, Bob. If people want to contact you and keep the conversation going, what's a good way to keep in touch?
Yeah, I have my website, belderbos.dev, and I'm on LinkedIn, and so I link it all there. So I think that's the main place. I have the blog, the articles, and my socials there. Yeah.
Okay, we put that down in the show notes as well.
Awesome.
That was an amazing conversation. Thank you all.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. I really enjoyed this, and I feel really like we need to have these kind of chats because there's a lot going on.
Absolutely. We will have it again, I hope.
Yeah. All right.
Thank you.
Thanks again for
Thank you.
Yeah. All right.
Cheers.
Cheers.